I sold my apartment to cover the costs of her over-the-top wedding, and she turned around and told the guests, "He's probably just the backup son." Right before she walked down the aisle, Ava leaned in real close and whispered, "It's adorable that you think you actually matter today." I looked her in the eye, leaned a little closer, and said calmly, "Then wait and see what happens when I stop playing along." That's when I gave the signal and hit play on the video. The slideshow was rolling like everyone expected, baby pictures, childhood moments, until the screen suddenly glitched. And just like that, a file popped up she thought had been deleted a decade ago. Within minutes, over 50 people quietly slipped out of the room. And yet, there she was again, whispering with that same champagne-soaked breath, "It's honestly cute how convinced you are that today's about you." Her veil brushed my shoulder as she turned with perfect timing to beam at the camera crew, the very same crew I paid for. I clenched my jaw but didn't move. I just stood there, watching her float down the aisle in a gown that cost more than I'd made in 4 months. That dress? I paid for it. The towering 5-tiered cake? That was on me too. The ridiculous peacocks roaming the garden? Me again. I gave up my apartment, my 1-bedroom, my personal retreat, really the only asset I had, all so Ava could have her fairy tale wedding. She told me the budget was tight, said our parents couldn't afford it all, and promised she'd pay me back once the honeymoon was over. Truth is, I never even asked for repayment. I just told her, "Whatever you need." Because that's what you do for family, right? Only, turns out, not everyone defines family the same way. When I walked up to the reception table, my aunt leaned over and smiled like it was a charity gesture. "It's so sweet Ava invited you," she said. "She said you were kinda like the backup son." Backup son. Like I was some sort of understudy in my own damn family, the one they call in when the golden child needs something big. The invisible brother they only remember when there's a problem or a payment due. Then came the moment that flipped the entire day upside down. Ava leaned in one more time, right as the ceremony was about to begin. Her lips were glossy, catching the light. And with a little smirk, she whispered, "It's actually hilarious how hard you're trying today." "But this is my day," she said, half laughing. "Not yours. So maybe try not to embarrass yourself by pretending it is." I smiled back, got in close, and said quietly, "Then let's see what happens when I stop pretending." Then I gave the AV guy his cue. He pressed play. The screen behind the altar lit up like everyone expected, sweet photos from childhood, the usual sentimental stuff. But right in the middle of it, something went wrong. The screen flickered. Then a file appeared that no one was supposed to see. Old, grainy, and completely off script. Ava's face dropped. Her perfect smile vanished, and her mouth just hung open in shock. And then, just like that, 54 guests stood up and quietly exited the venue. Let me backtrack a bit. I'm Daniel, 32 years old. Up until just a few weeks ago, I owned a 540 square foot apartment on the edge of the city. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Hardwood floors, a view of the alley, and a faucet I fixed with my own 2 hands. That little place was my constant, my safe zone, the one thing in my life I built on my own. Ava's 28. And ever since she figured out how to fake cry on command, she's been the family's crown jewel. Straight A's, flawless smile, and a long resume of well-crafted lies. She played violin for 6 weeks back in 4th grade, and my mom still talks about it like she headlined a symphony tour with Yo-Yo Ma. Meanwhile, I've always been the one in the background. Quiet, steady, dull according to them. I was the one picking them up from the airport, loaning money without being asked, only getting acknowledged when it made them look good. When Ava got engaged, I saw it coming from a mile away. "I want it to feel magical," she said, sipping rose on our parents' patio like she'd personally invented it. "But the budget's tight," she added. Mom sighed dramatically. "We've already spent so much on her engagement party, ring insurance, and her bridal yoga retreat." Then Dad chimed in, turning to me, "Daniel, you're smart with money, right? No wife, no kids, nothing tying you down yet. No family of my own. Just a mortgage, monthly bills, and the same student loan I've been chipping away at for years. They didn't ask. They just assumed. So I sold it, put my apartment on the market, drained what little savings I had, and handed over $68,400. Also, Ava could have string musicians, silk napkins embroidered with their initials, and a sunset ceremony at an estate where Netflix once filmed a murder mystery. She cried when I handed her the check. Hugged me. Told me I was the best big brother in the world. That lasted, maybe, for days. Then the planning moved behind closed doors. Meetings started happening without me. Group chats I should have been in suddenly stopped including me. I'd offer to help. Do you still want me to cover the florist invoice? And I'd get brushed off with, oh, Todd's handling that. To her fiancé. The same guy who once asked if Brussels was a salad or a city. From that point on, they treated me less like family and more like a contractor. Scratch that worse. Like I was in the way. But I kept my mouth shut. Bit my tongue. Showed up when they needed me. Kept the checks coming. Meanwhile, Todd's groomsmen were getting VIP treatment, and I was being treated like some glorified Uber driver. And then came the file. It was 3 a.m., 2 nights before the wedding. I was crashing on my friend Erin's couch. Remember, I'd sold my place, and I was digging through an old family hard drive, looking for childhood photos of Ava with me as kids. She'd asked for something sweet for the slideshow. That's when I stumbled on it. A folder labeled, Private. Do not open. Naturally, I clicked. There were about a dozen videos. Mostly just teenage Ava being overdramatic, crying about bad eyebrows, whining about college rejection letters. I was about to delete the whole thing when I opened the last one. Dated 2015. And what I saw turned my stomach. It was grainy, low quality, but unmistakably her. Ava. In a room with some guy who definitely wasn't Todd. And he wasn't wearing a shirt. She was laughing, not just laughing but howling, over something terrible. Mocking a real tragedy Julia went through. I mean, she acts like losing a clump of cells is a tragedy, Ava sneered in the video. At least she won't have to raise a kid with a guy who never gave a crap about her in the first place. My hands went ice cold. This wasn't just teenage drama. This wasn't silly gossip. This was Ava at 20. Calculating. And just plain cruel. And just like that, everything clicked into place. All the manipulation. How she'd twisted our parents around her finger for years. How every time something went wrong in her life, she found a way to pin the blame on someone else. She never had to face the consequences because there was always someone, usually me, holding her up so she wouldn't fall. That was the moment I made up my mind. I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. They wanted a magical wedding? But they were about to see the real person hiding behind the veil. They thought I'd give some heartwarming toast, maybe make people laugh and cry, raise a glass, and sit back down while they clapped. They had no idea what I had planned. I walked to the microphone like I was in a trance, cool, steady, calm on the outside. But every step I took was powered by years of rage I'd stuffed down deep. Ava was sitting up front at the head table, right under this chandelier that probably cost more than my car. One hand wrapped around a champagne glass, nails freshly done. She was watching me with that same smug half-smile she always wore when she thought she'd won. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice echoing just a little in the giant ballroom, "I won't take up too much of your time." The room quieted immediately. Every face turned toward me. My dad gave this proud little nod. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, expecting some tearjerker speech. They all thought I was about to honor my sister. Tell a sweet story. Raise a toast. Instead, I said, you know, family means something different to each of us. To some, it means loyalty. Sacrifice. Showing up when no one else does. I looked directly at Ava. And to others, I continued, slower now, it means taking everything and never once saying thank you. You could feel the air shift. A little ripple moved through the crowd like a chill. Then I turned and gave the AV guy a small nod. The screen behind me came to life. At first, it played like any other wedding slideshow. Baby pictures, school portraits, awkward prom poses. Nothing out of the ordinary. Guests smiled, some even let out soft sighs. Then came the glitch. The screen flickered, turned black. And then the real show started. It was a grainy video. Dated 2015. Ava was on a bed, swirling a glass of red wine, speaking to someone just off screen. Her voice, clear and sharp. Honestly, she said, Julia keeps acting like she lost everything. But maybe it was a blessing in disguise. Imagine raising a kid with that man. She got lucky, Ava continued. Some people just aren't fit to raise kids, especially not the ones who mourn in public. Especially not the ones who treat every tiny win like they just won an Oscar. The entire room froze. Julia, my cousin, threw a hand over her mouth like she was about to be sick. Her husband stood up so fast his chair fell over, fists clenched tight. Mom gasped. Then, on screen, Ava laughed again. Loud, raw. That kid would have had it rough from the start. Maybe this was fate stepping in, she said with a shrug. Dodged a bullet. Gasps echoed across the ballroom. People actually shouted. And Ava, live, in real time, shot up from her seat like she'd been hit with a jolt of electricity. Turn it OFF, she shrieked. Daniel, what the hell is this? But the video kept rolling. Her voice kept spilling out, every word like acid. She acts like no one else has ever gone through anything hard, she said. Some people turn every setback into a spotlight. I turned back toward the microphone. That, I said, voice low and steady, is who you're all toasting tonight. That's the real Ava. Chairs scraped against the floor. People started rising from their seats. Some just shook their heads and walked out. Others looked at Ava like she was something stuck to the bottom of their shoes. Julia stormed out, brushing right past the head table. Her husband followed, muttering loud enough for the whole room to hear, disgusting. Ava tried to regain control. Tried to talk her way out of it. To explain. But nobody was listening anymore. You planned this, she spat, lunging toward me. Her heels got caught in the layers of her dress, nearly tripping her. You're damn right I did, I said, not even blinking. I gave you everything. And all you gave me back was shame. You called me the backup son. To my face. People were filming now. Phones out. Cameras rolling. Dad finally stood up, face flushed, hand trembling. Daniel, that's enough. No, I said, my voice rising. You don't get to tell me when enough is enough. You didn't say a damn thing when she called me a placeholder. When she watched me sell my home so she could play princess in front of cameras. When she leaned in and whispered this morning that it was cute that I thought I mattered today. Murmurs rolled through the room. That wasn't a slip, I said, locking eyes with the crowd. That wasn't a joke. That's who she is. And I'm done pretending otherwise. Ava was shaking now. Her voice wobbled. It was years ago, she said weakly. I didn't mean it. Didn't mean it? Julia's voice cut through the air like a blade. She'd come back, face flushed with fury. You told me to be grateful for what I went through, she said. You told me it saved me from something worse. I cried in your arms, Ava. You were my daughter's godmother. Gasps rang out again. Todd, Ava's fiancé, stood up at last. He looked like someone had just knocked the wind out of him. His voice was barely above a whisper. Ava, tell me that's not you. I was venting, she yelled. It was private. It was edited. It's your voice. Your face. Your words, I said, looking her in the eye. Stop hiding. You've been doing it your whole life. Then my dad turned on me, no surprise there. You've always been jealous, he snapped. Always trying to undermine her. No, I said, steady as ever. I've been cleaning up her messes. Quietly. For years. And now? I'm done. That was the tipping point. People started leaving, one after another. Not angry. Not loud. Just done. Disappointed. Worn out. Julia and her family were the first to go. Then Uncle Ben. Then Todd's parents. After that, a good chunk of Ava's old college friends. I'm guessing half of them were already texting their group chats, uploading the video, and passing it around. By the time the band was supposed to start their first song, 54 guests had walked out. And Ava, standing there in her $70,000 wedding gown, looked like the world had fallen in on her. Her makeup was running. Her lips were trembling. Her tiara was sliding off. She just stood there watching the dream crumble. I walked over to the mic, set it gently on the table, and said the last thing I had left to say. I hope you saved the receipt for that dress. After I set the mic down, I turned and walked straight out. And I swear, the silence she left behind? It was deafening. Felt louder than any shouting ever could have been. I didn't go back inside. I didn't stick around for the fallout. No apologies, no explanations, not even the inevitable emotional breakdown. I just walked out of that marble monstrosity in my worn-out dress shoes, right into the harsh glare of the venue's chandelier-style lights that lit up the parking lot like a stage, and finally let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. For the first time in what felt like forever, I breathed in air that didn't come laced with guilt. That night, I crashed on my buddy's couch, the same couch I'd been living on ever since I sold my apartment to fund Ava's fantasy wedding. But that night, I actually slept. No anxiety gnawing at my chest. No looping thoughts. No mental calculator tallying expenses while I lay in the dark. Just sleep. Deep, peaceful, dreamless. When I woke up, my phone looked like it had been struck by lightning. 97 missed calls. 132 text messages. 3 voicemails from my dad. 1 from Ava. And 5 from my mom, all with the same subject line, "Call me back." Now, I didn't call back. Instead, I did something that, for me, felt downright revolutionary. I blocked every one of them. For the first time since I was 17, I let myself off the hook. I gave myself permission to stop being the family's emotional punching bag. I wasn't their wallet anymore. I wasn't the reliable backup. I wasn't the quiet brother who bailed them out and bit his tongue. I was done. But the world wasn't done with them. By Monday morning, that video had caught fire. It started quietly. Someone in our extended family's Facebook group shared it. Then it jumped to TikTok with the caption, "When your bridezilla sister calls you the backup son, and you drop a truth bomb at her $70,000 wedding." It hit 3.2 million views in 2 days. Then came the Reddit threads. The BuzzFeed headline, "Brother exposes bride's cruelty in viral wedding mic drop," and the internet is cheering. People weren't just agreeing with me. They were rallying. Total strangers, EMTs, veterans, single dads, messaged me saying, "Man, I've been the backup son too. Thank you." A few sent memes. Some offered to buy me drinks. One woman in Vancouver emailed me, "If you're ever in Canada, dinner's on me." As for Ava? Forget it. The praise wasn't exactly going her way. I started hearing bits and pieces through mutual friends. Apparently Todd, poor sweet Todd, bless him, called off the engagement the very next day. Some folks were shocked he didn't leave right then and there. But he was in total disbelief, just stumbling through the wreckage. He packed his stuff while Ava screamed that he was abandoning her during her darkest hour. But he left anyway. She moved back in with our parents. Her Instagram? Wiped clean. Every wedding photo gone. The same people who used to worship her sundress were now blocking her on group pages and unfollowing her in droves. But the thing that really crushed her? It wasn't Todd. It was Julia. Cousin Julia, the one Ava humiliated behind her back during one of the worst times of her life, wasn't done. She recorded a video of her own. Unflinching. Honest. "I used to think Ava was my friend," she said into the camera. She held my hand while I sobbed. Told me I was brave. And all that time, she was mocking me behind closed doors. That video exploded. It went even more viral than mine. Suddenly the vibe shifted, from shock to full-blown outrage. Ava wasn't just a drama story anymore. She became a walking cautionary tale. My parents? They scrambled to do damage control. My mom even sent a message through a family friend, saying, "We didn't raise her like that." I actually laughed when I read it. Out loud. Because yes you did. You raised her to believe she could say whatever she wanted, treat people however she pleased, and someone else would always sweep up the mess behind her. You rewarded her worst behavior. You punished anyone who dared set a boundary. You taught her that kindness was optional, but appearances were sacred. So no, you don't get to play innocent now. Meanwhile, I was doing the unthinkable. I was rebuilding. I got approved for a small apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I found a used couch and a cheap desk on Facebook Marketplace. And for the first time in forever, I was sleeping without that heavy, invisible pressure crushing my chest. I started therapy. Real therapy. Not venting over beers, actual work. And I finally told someone how it felt to grow up invisible, always stuck in the shadow of the golden child, who never had to face the consequences of anything she did. My therapist said something that I'll never forget. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to walk away. So I walked. Here's the kicker. 3 weeks after the wedding, I got a message request on Facebook from someone I never saw coming. It wasn't Ava. It was Todd's ex-fiancée. The one before Ava. She wrote, "I know we've never met, but I saw the video. I left Todd because he was too passive, too easily pushed around. I always wondered if I was being too harsh. Turns out I wasn't wrong. He fell for Ava. But watching what you did? That took guts. I just wanted to say thank you." And just like that, the universe dropped a little unexpected closure in my lap. 6 months later, I was standing barefoot in my tiny kitchen, stirring cheap instant coffee in a chipped mug, looking out over a quiet street. No chandeliers. No fake smiles. No impossible standards hanging over me like storm clouds. Just peace. And for the first time in my life, real, unshaken peace, I wasn't holding my breath anymore. I'd rebuilt, slowly and carefully. Like a man picking glass shards out of his hands after walking barefoot through a church that came crashing down on top of him. Then my phone buzzed. Blocked number. Voicemail. I should have ignored it. But curiosity can be a slippery thing. It was my dad. "Daniel," he said, voice tight. "You've made your point. Ava's been through enough. She lost her job. People won't even look at her. You didn't just ruin a wedding," his voice said through the voicemail. "You ruined her life. Are you proud of that? We're family, for God's sake. Come home," he added, like that was still an option. "She needs her brother." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. Come home? That's rich. They never even let me belong there. Ava got the house. The spotlight. The applause. I got guilt. I got bills. I got expectations stacked so high they nearly broke my back. And now, after everything, they wanted me to come back? For what? To clean up what's left of the throne they built for her and watched crumble. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked over to my closet, reached up to the top shelf and pulled down a plain old shoebox, the only thing I'd held onto from my old apartment. Inside was the binder. The wedding invoice binder. $68,000. Every page a receipt in my name. Every total pulled from my account. Every item a quiet sacrifice I made so my sister could have her dream. And after all that, she still had the nerve to call me the backup son. Not anymore. A week after that voicemail, I got another message. This one was different. It came through email. No subject line. No name attached. Just a few lines of text that stopped me in my tracks. "You're not the only one," it began. "I was the shadow in my family too. What you did gave people like me a breath of air. You burned the pedestal down, and in the ashes, I saw myself standing for the first time. Thank you." Then came the line that really stuck. "I'm breathing now." No name. No signature. Didn't need one. Because that's when I understood this wasn't just about Ava. Or about one wedding. Or even about the decades of silent tension in my family. It was about all of us who were told to stay small. To be quiet. To keep the peace even when it crushed us. I didn't ruin the mood. I shattered the illusion. And in its place, I finally built something real. Julia? She cut ties completely. Blocked Ava. Moved on with her life. Now she runs support groups for women who've experienced miscarriage. She tells the truth now, raw, open, no pretending. No polished speeches. No fake strength. Just honesty. And Todd? He packed up and headed to Colorado. Word is he's dating a nurse. Someone calm. Grounded. A real person. Not an influencer in a sundress, spraying curated perfection like it's perfume. And Ava? Last I heard, she tried to reinvent herself online. Started a blog with some melodramatic title like From Bride to Broken, My Journey. Didn't go anywhere. Nobody cared. Because by then, the world had seen what I'd been seeing for 28 years. Behind the veil, there wasn't magic. There was just nothing. As for my parents? Still radio silence. Still waiting for me to come crawling back, to step right back into the role I used to play. The dependable son, the quiet giver, the fixer. But here's the twist, I don't miss them. Not even a little. I've filled that empty space with something better. With peace. With purpose. With people who see me as I am, not just as a resource, a solution, or a fallback plan. And now, when I pass the mirror, I don't see the backup son anymore. I see a man who pulled the curtain back, stopped the show, and handed the microphone to the truth. So if you're reading this, if you've ever been told your voice doesn't matter, let me say the thing no one said to me for far too long. You do matter. And when you finally speak up, don't whisper. Say it so the whole damn room hears you. Because the world doesn't change with silence. It changes when someone like you stands up, looks around and says, loud and clear, I'm not your backup anymore. And then walks away. Not broken, but finally free.